Uh, oh, there we go. Got to record. So thank you so much, everyone. I'm so excited to be here tonight with all of you. I think that you are doing some of the most hardest work in our Indigenous communities, trying to reclaim language, revitalize language, learn language, so dedicated, and really, really want to hold you up. So Ḳu.oo is one of my really good friends. He's family, and I know that his life has been dedicated to this hard work. So I'm here in Juneau visiting my daughter Guna, and I messaged Ḳu.oo and said, hey, do you want me to do a lateral kindness presentation tonight for your language students? And he was like, on it. Yeah, yes. Immediately. So I'm really excited to be here. So my English name is Marilyn Jensen, and I am Dakak Tlingit Tagish Kwan from the Carcross Tagish First Nation in Carcross, just over the border. And I do a lot of work in community and Indigenous community. My undergraduate degree is in anthropology, and I have a master's in Indigenous governance. And I work mainly doing consulting work with Indigenous communities. I was teaching at UConn University, but I kind of, I'm taking a break, and I'm just really focusing on being in communities. So just a little bit more about who I am. I am Ďákl'owédi under Keat Hit, Killer Whale House. I am a child of Deshitan. We call Carcross Natasahini, which means where the waters are narrow. I am the daughter of late former chief and elder Doris McLean and my father, Philip McLean. Really like to honor my dad as well. He was British and Scottish, and I'm so proud of that, especially that Scottish part of myself as well. My mom always taught me to really hold up all of the lineages within me. So I'm the granddaughter of Peter and Agnes Johns, great granddaughter of Tagish Marie Johns, and Scotty and Clara Williams. So I was born in Whitehorse, and I still live there. Yeah, and I'm so happy to be here with all of you tonight. So I just wanted to show you, kind of my lineage here. Obviously, I said I'm Ďákl'owédi, so I follow all of the females in my family. And so these are as far back as the pictures go. So over here, on the left is Clara, my great grandma. And then this is my grandma Agnes. And this is when she was the first generation to go into residential school in Carcross, to the Chutla school. And that's her there as a child. Then there's my mom. I'm sure some of you who are present in the class knew my mom. She was one heck of a powerhouse way before her time, and she was one of those people that could understand Tlingit, but it wouldn't come out of her mouth because of, my grandma and grandpa having gone to residential school. It was forced out of them to teach their children. Then there's me. And I think my responsibility is to reclaim and to, take everything that those before us, worked so hard for, just basic human rights, the right to exist, to be who we are. And my mom always, tried to teach us, no matter what, you are beautiful, you are noble, you are strong, and you come from very, very, very noble people. She said that all the time to us. So I feel it's my responsibility to, revitalize and to keep going with all of their strength. And then there's my kid there, Guna, who, walks through this world with just such, the notion of that she's absolutely allowed to be who she is, and it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. So having, the generations before her having to dealt with all of the, the negativity, the residential school, the assimilation, the having no basic human rights, all of that, she has it now. So she has a great responsibility to carry that forward. And so language, art, teaching, being a part of all of it. All right, so why am I here and what am I doing? So I've really been focusing on healing and wellness, reclamation in Indigenous communities, starting off in the Yukon, with a specific focus on Indigenous lateral violence, awareness, understanding, and then providing tools to deal with it. And you might be going, why are you doing this? This is kind of odd. Well, what happened was I was teaching a class called wellness in community and organization, Indigenous organizations. And so when I was teaching that class, we talked about lateral violence because it's such a huge, huge thing in Indigenous community. I'm sure you're all well aware of it, experienced, been a part of it, seen it, witnessed one way or another. And I specifically know it's a huge thing in language learning too. I was doing some work in language revitalization about 10 years ago, and like it came up, that people sometimes find these spaces really, really harsh, and where people are mean sometimes. So this First Nation in the Yukon said, hey, Marilyn, can you come over? So I went over, and they had their chief, they had some elders, they had like the executive director, and basically what they said to me was, so we have a problem with lateral violence, and we know that, we own that. We're like, just, we accept that. And we need help. We need to do something about it. So can you come like teach the whole community, all the leadership, everyone that works in the First Nation government, the staff, the whole community, all the elders and youth about lateral violence? And I was like, okay, sure. But can I get some help? So I drug in you can see this picture here. This is my brother there, Thomas, who's a 6'4" white dude from Ottawa. And we have to like, Ḳu.oo, we have to figure out, get the right way to say his name again, because my auntie did adopt him. So he's now my brother. And I consider Thomas to be like a true ally to Indigenous people. His role is to help, to hold us up, and to do whatever we need to strengthen our community and to work on these bigger concepts like reconciliation and stuff like that. So Thomas and I have been like all through the Yukon since 2013 in every single community over and over and over again. So it's amazing because, people have really taken on ownership. This is a thing. We have this problem and we need to fix it. So let's fix it, which I think is amazing, because it's important to realize that people, although, all of us could probably identify, lateral violence being present in our lives, our whole lives, we weren't really naming it until about 15, 20 years ago. People didn't call it anything. It was just this very heavy, weird phenomenon, dynamic that existed, among us. And interestingly, I remember when I was about 5, I had this thought in my head, and it was, how come everyone's so mean to each other? Why are people mean? And I was really thinking about how people spoke to each other, the words they used. And it was always, in a mean way. Even though I grew up in a very loving family, I could still, see this all around me. So it is a really important thing, and we have to focus on it. It is a huge part of healing. In my humble opinion, we won't be able to do a lot of things unless we take care of this. So and healing, as we know, is a pillar. It's a pillar of self-determination. It was a part of the vision of our elders and our people, back in the 60s and 70s, when they really started on this like land claims and this, establishing basic rights for our people. So we have to heal, but we're not going to be able to do that when this exists among us. So I usually do it like a 2-day workshop, but I'm just going to try to, roll this up into a nice little, bundle for you just to get kind of an overview. So I'm going to overview what lateral violence is and why it's so predominant in Indigenous communities. We're going to talk a little bit about why hurt people hurt people. We're going to look at what the concept of lateral kindness is and what it means. And then I will give you a basic tool, to hopefully help in these moments. Along the way, we've learned a lot of big truths, a lot of big things have come apparent, because there's been about 2,000 people or more that have, participated in the workshops, not just in Yukon, but in British Columbia, in Alberta. We even went all the way over to Newfoundland once, over in Ontario. So definitely the word is getting out. one of the things that is really important is that we all have, like a pretty, I guess, consistent understanding and definition of what lateral violence is. So, as I said, no one was calling it anything until about 15 to 20 years ago. But then, groups like the Native Women's Association of Canada, they called it out. They're like, hey, this is something, this is a really weird thing that's in our community. We need to deal with it. So after, kind of looking at a lot of literature and materials and research and talking to people, this is what we've come up with. So lateral violence occurs when members of the same Indigenous community or workplace seek power by pushing each other down or by working against each other. By pushing each other down, we mean acts that shame, threaten, intimidate, exclude, demean, undermine, silence, or belittle another person. Lateral violence also weakens the bonds and functioning of the group as a whole and is never necessary or productive. Lateral violence looks at violence from a community perspective. It takes place among people who belong to the same circle of identity, who should be lifting each other up and not pushing each other down. So that's the basic definition that we've, after all of these years, we've kind of come to, of just naming those materials. All right, so how does it happen? What's going on here? So it starts when a group collectively experiences oppression and violence. And, for an example, through the whole process of colonization, which we all know is violence within itself. Every aspect of it was just pure violence. And these experiences have caused deep emotional hurt and grief. And when we don't have tools or we don't have a way to fight back and release that pain in a healthy way, it starts to just build and build and build inside us. And then these emotions, they start to present themselves as really complex feelings, such as shame, fear, and then eventually anger. And then the bad feelings get directed at those closest to us rather than our true adversaries or our true, challenges. And one of, I would say, our challenges is language revitalization. So it directs everyone's attention away from the important things that we need to do. And I really wanted to talk a little bit about shame, because it is a very painful, very complex emotion. And as when we talk about lateral violence, we really are focused on emotional violence. So there's all kinds of violences, but right now we're just kind of living in the emotional violence sphere right now. So this is what I always say is the pain that's in our spirit, in our heart, particularly painful, very hurtful. We can't just say, oh, I'll just get over it, like it's nothing. It is something, and it's hurt. It hurts. People, have described their experiences and they are extremely painful. And some people are never able to, heal through them, process it. It's very serious. And that's basically the point I'm trying to make here, is that it's very serious. Okay, let's go back here. So shame. One of the things that I have really kind of, come to understand is that our people can go from 0 to 60 to that place of shame. And why? Because it was so entrenched into us, and not just like this was long ago, it's still today. It's like, you're bad. Everything about you is wrong. You're ugly. You're stupid. You don't know anything. You'll never succeed. All of these messages were so strongly entrenched into us, is that I think people have internalized shame, far greater than many other communities, and that we can go to that place so easily. The one that self-sabotages and tells you that you're bad. So what does lateral violence start to look like? And, one of the things that I always say is sometimes it's hard for us to kind of identify it, because it can be very, passive aggressive, very quiet. very subtle. Someone comes up to you and they lay down, like I always kind of say that, like they say something to you and it was obviously meant to hurt you, but you quite didn't really know what happened, but you know that it hurt. So when we look at, it looks like my slides aren't like doing their, transition thing. So it's coming out all at once, but that's okay. We'll just live with that. So when we look at the dynamic of lateral violence, there's usually three parties involved. And some people don't like these, like these words, but we apologize. We just use them because we need words to kind of, understand what we're talking about here. So the person doing it, the perpetrator or the aggressor, this is the person that's doing the lateral violence. And one of the things we've come to learn is that they're not, even though they may feel like a little hit of power in that moment, they're disempowering themselves and everyone else in the group. Like no one's benefiting from these actions. And then the target or the person that the lateral violence is being directed towards, they experience the hurt and it hurts again. And one of the things that we've, really have come to learn as well is that if they're never defended, if it's never kind of addressed, they become extremely angry with their group or their community or their family or their workplace, whatever it is, because it just keeps going on and on. No one's trying to stop it. And that's largely been the case in Indigenous communities. People are like, well, why does this happen? And a big part of it is because we don't know how to make it stop. We don't know how to address it in a way, that is effective. And then there's the bystanders, everyone else, all the people who like are just over there at the coffee station, and they heard this go down. They heard some lateral violence go down. So they've witnessed the hurt, they've heard it. And one of the huge things is that we learn if it's okay or not, depending on how our group responds. So for an example, say we're having, a meeting in our community, we're sitting there, we're trying to do something important. Someone comes in and they start screaming at us, telling us we're wasting our time and, throwing stuff around. And we all just sit there and look, and it's very clear, like something major is happening, but no one does anything, and people don't do anything because they don't know what to do. Right? Like we've really, identified that we don't know what to do. People respond to lateral violence just the same way as they respond to trauma, right? Which is you either freeze, you fawn, or you flee, or you fight. You know what I mean? It's almost the same thing. So most of the time, people just freeze, and they're like, I don't know who's going to do, who's doing, like, what's happening here, who's going to like make the stop. And then generally nobody makes it stop. Right. So our thing is we need to learn how to make it stop in a good way. And it's, we call it loving strength, and I'll get to that. So what do some of the actual, the way that lateral violence actually manifests itself? Demeaning, to make people feel less than, belittling, nothing about you is important. To silence, this is a huge one. Just be quiet. You can't talk here, right? Like, shh, be quiet. And I think that one is particularly, really, really horrible, because I'm a Orange Aries monkey. And if you know what that means, you know what I'm talking about. If you tell me to be quiet, it's like the worst thing, right? Threats, just, if you don't, whatever, you're getting fired, those kinds of words. Intimidation, making people fear, have fear wherever it is, in the workplace, in the group. Undermining activities, sabotaging, I call this, which makes no sense whatsoever. It's like, oh, look at those youth. They're trying to learn Tlingit. I'm going to go over there and I'm going to wreck it. I'm going to like go over there and start calling them down and just wreck it. And I don't think anyone articulates that in their, their thinking process. But for some reason, when good things are happening, people feel compelled to like wreck it, and like sabotage. And then exclusion. This is a huge one, huge in Indigenous community. You're not this enough. Your eyes are blue. You're not like, you have no clan, you're like this, you're not status, you're whatever, excluding people away from their community. And actually, I think that is the worst one, because we know exactly where we come from. All of us have like links and lineage, as to where we come from. So when your own people are acting like you don't belong there, it hurts. It very, very, very much hurts. And this is a huge one. Everywhere we go, people talk about this exclusion. For one way or another, it's like, we're going to make you feel like you don't belong here, when absolutely, I do belong here. So just before, I wanted to explain like why, where did this concept of lateral kindness come up? So what happened was that, right out of the gates, like right when we started this work, and we, we were kind of researching, what kind of stuff's out there on lateral violence and stuff, immediately, this idea of, the counter to lateral violence is our own teachings, our own values, our own protocols on the way we're supposed to treat other human beings. We already have it. We already know all of this, but just like everything else in our culture, we've been displaced, so sometimes people don't know how they're supposed to talk to each other. Sometimes people don't know exactly what respect means. We know we're supposed to be respectful, but exactly what does that mean? So immediately, this kind of counter in the form of lateral kindness emerged. And so we really knew that this workshop would really just be about, identifying the ways that we already know we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to be with each other. So lateral kindness occurs when members of the same group love each other and hold each other up. And we understand our power comes from working together, right? So that's why the lateral kindness is kind of like, like the rallying call. And it really truly has become a movement, in many communities. It's so funny because one time we saw this like big old gruff dude down at the gas station wearing a lateral kindness t-shirt. And people are like rocking their t-shirts all over, and people share with us, yeah, sometimes when things get heated, people will be like, remember lateral kindness, you guys. So it's like an easy way to bring people back, to kind of remembering, oh yeah, we're getting a little bit out of line here. Let's call ourselves, or check in ourselves. So I wanted to, briefly talk a little bit about, what else is compelling, people to go there, because it's really important. We always say that we can't fix something when we don't understand exactly what it is or why it's occurring. And, one of the main, things that we've come to learn is that, of course, our communities are just ridden with so much trauma every day, grief, crisis, pain, all of these things just nonstop. And so this is a cool quote. Ashley Judd said it at a TED lecture. We don't know if she said it first, but basically she said, trauma not transformed will be trauma transferred. And really that's the essence of what's happening when people are engaging in lateral violence. And so, we look at it and we understand that violence is a way to cover up feelings of shame, humiliation, and vulnerability, and replace them with the perception of pride and respect. Violence occurs when people see no means of undoing or preventing their own humiliation except by humiliating others. This is from Dr. James Gilligan. He wrote a lot of and studied a lot of like what, kind of why people are engaging in violence, all kinds of violence. So there we are, that those feelings of shame, humiliation, vulnerability, all of those really hard things, to deal with. And then going back, to like the, as we develop as young human beings, what are the important things here? And, what are our needs? So healthy child development, Thomas usually does this part, and he starts off talking about childbirth, and then he quickly stops because he realizes the most annoying thing is for a man to talk about childbirth. But he says, as soon as a baby's born, what do they do? What do they need? Right. And I won't ask you guys that, but basically they need to connect, right? They need to connect to an adult that will love them and take care of them. Otherwise, we won't survive. Human beings are way too vulnerable. We can't survive, without that. And so this, this idea of unconditional love, a feeling of strong and constant affection without conditions or limitations, so I can't tell Guna, take out the garbage and I'll love you, because that's a condition. I could say, Guna, I love you, and please take out the garbage. You know what I mean? So it's that feeling that no matter what, somebody loves me. Somebody is always going to love me. And as we know, with the residential school system, our children were removed way, way, way too young. And there was no love at the residential school. There was none. People speak of just cold, no affection, nothing, was there. So children, as you can see right away, are removed from that. They don't have the sense of unconditional love. And then we have this other circle here, which we just called ethical boundaries. These are the rules that are taught, from our culture, from our grandparents, from our families. Rules or limits on behaviors. Like I know, I should know what are those, as I move through the world, I have a strong sense of what I can and cannot say to people. We know, and we especially know as Tlingit people, there's so much protocol in regards to the way that you speak to other people and what you're allowed to say and what you're not allowed to say. I remember when one of my first jobs was the coolest job in the world. After I finished my graduate degree, I came back to the Yukon and I got to hang out with elders for like 3 years, just driving around the Yukon, recording them with a big old tape recorder back in those days. Some of you might not know what a tape recorder is, but it was this thing that recorded back in the day. And anyway, so I just spent, a lot of time doing that. And I remember, when we would talk about like rules and like laws, we called it laws. All of them would say, you can't just talk any old way to people. That's what they said. You can't just say whatever you want. You got to think about it. You have to have intention. You have to understand that your words have repercussions, so those are some of the kinds of the ethical boundaries that we're talking about, that we know absolutely. How do I interact with people? How do I behave? How do I look at people? What are the things I'm supposed to do? How do I say something in a way that won't offend other people? Because as we know, as Tlingit people, the worst possible thing you could do is offend the opposites, especially. We don't want to do that. And there's a lot of like protocols and rules all around that. Well, that should extend even, outside of our ceremonial spaces too, our formal spaces. It's, everyday life, right? And so I believe strongly that we're in a reclamation of that as well, for a lot of people. So then, you bring these two things together and there's a happy person, that is able to be vulnerable, to be open to love and all other, joyous things in life, to have a positive self-image in themselves, just to know like, I'm good, I'm worthy, I deserve good things in my life. We deserve everything good around us in our community. All of this comes into, someone's natural way of like walking through life. One of the things I forgot to do, this is like my most famous thing, is, like some of those behaviors when we talk about how lateral violence manifests itself, a huge way is the nonverbals, right? The way that people communicate without using their voice. And this is the one everyone loves the most. So I'll try to do it for you guys. I call it lateral violence stink eye, or mean auntie look, even though I've got the sweetest, kindest, most gentlest auntie ever. So this always happens to me. I don't know if it happens to you guys. Anytime I walk into a space and our people are, gathered there, no matter what, like this happens every single time. So I walk in, like I have like my Starbucks usually, and, people are gathered. I walk in and I look over there, right? And someone will go at me. Did you see that? The lateral violence stink eye? They're like, you know, they give me that look, the look of like, what, you know, what did I do? And I always explain that when that happened to me, you might as well just thrown a dart into my heart, a spear into my heart, right? Because I'm just like, and I think to myself, oh my God, what did I do? I did something. So-and-so's mad at me. Of course, I totally own it as my fault, you know, back to that like internalized shame thing, right? Like it's my fault. And so I, you know, I sit down, I sit there, I'm totally consumed with this, like, why do they not like me? What did I do? I did something wrong. Now I'm like, just, you know, recounting every single time I've seen them over the last 20 years. And all I can think about is I did something wrong. Now it's like 3 in the morning and I'm laying there awake still, got all kinds of anxiety and, you know, stress and everything else because I'm so worried about what I did because someone's mad at me now. But what I've come to learn now, like it's taken me my whole life to figure this out and to learn this, is that I did not do anything. I was just the person walking by in the line of fire in that moment. And I can't own it, right? I cannot own that. And this I always share, especially when there's youth and younger people. If you can learn to do this right now, at your young age, you will save yourself so much grief. It's easier said than done. You know, it's not owning people's stuff, not owning people's energy. Someone wrote snow. Yeah, this, you know, the sigh. It's like, what's wrong? You know, kind of throwing things around. You know, like all of these ways that people in nonverbal ways communicate, you know, like their dissatisfaction with something. But the main point, you know, is why I share that story with the lateral violence stink eye is because we can't take other people's energy on. I don't know what's going on with this person. I have no idea. I have not walked in their moccasins. I don't know their story. I know that it's not cool though to be doing that to me, you know, and we'll get to that where we're able to, you know, like ask someone not to do that. But in that moment, it's, you know, it's their stuff and I have to leave it with them. So what we've learned is lateral violence is a way of surviving with painful feelings. And of course, my slide isn't working here very well either, but, you know, connection, people learn when they've, you know, been disconnected, that we're born needing connection and vulnerability. We know that we're very vulnerable. You're vulnerable anytime you put yourself in that space of like love, you know, because you love someone, they could leave you, they could die, they could whatever, right? We're just born vulnerable. So we need connection and we need to connect to an adult to survive, you know, to literally survive. And what some people have learned, you know, along the way is that love equates to hurtful experiences, you know, because if they've been subjected to abuse, either physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and neglect, ignoring my needs. No one is taking care of me. You know, I'm like, whatever, I'm, you know, just fending here for myself. So how do we survive painful feelings? What do humans do? And I know this sounds kind of cliche, but it's absolutely what people do. They put up survival walls around them to deal with their painful feelings. And, you know, we often use this terminology, shame-based identifications. You know, those are the ones that, you know, tell us how we feel about ourselves because the world has told us this, you know, so, and they're very complex. You know, we always say like, these are not easy feelings to navigate through. These are not easy feelings to process or to try to, you know, understand yourself, you know. Lots of times people need help, you know, you need some kind of way of dealing with this. But a lot of times people don't have help and they're just surviving, you know, the best way they can. So painful feelings, they end up looking like this: shame at existing. I feel like a burden. I don't belong. I'm small, I'm powerless, and I've been used and betrayed through my whole life, right? These are the very, very complicated feelings that people are dealing with. So what happens, they've got these walls around us, and Thomas always says, whatever you do, don't try to take down someone's wall, because then you're really going to see violence, right? Like, people need to do this themselves. People need to, figure out, how do I get through this, myself? How do I deal with this? How do I, make my way through life? And, I'm able to just, heal from all of this. And these, as you know, are very complicated. So what happens, and this is very interesting, is that although someone's feeling like this, all of these really, horrible feelings, most of the time it comes out quite different. They show the world something very different than what they're actually feeling. So pride-based counter identifications. Yeah, I'm okay. I just need myself. I don't need anyone else. I'm good. I'm good at being a loner. I don't want anyone else in my life. I don't have emotions. I don't feel anything. Like, that's the message that they're putting out there. I'm strong and I'm in control, larger than life. Everything's great. I'm completely successful. And I will be doing the using and the betraying. So they really, they portray themselves to be much different than what's going on inside. And this is a way to avoid connection and vulnerability at all costs. And of course, somebody would do that when you've learned, all you've learned in life is that vulnerability and connection is just pain. All I get from that is pain, because I've been hurt so much throughout my life. So we feel that it's extremely important, and I know I'm doing this, so it's very quick, broad overview here. We do spend a lot of time talking about this stuff, because this is what we need to understand, is what's really going on with lateral violence. So we don't hate the person that's doing it. We don't just write them off like, oh, that person's just an asshole. They always do that. We can understand a bit more. We can understand a bit more thoroughly what's going on. Therefore, we have more compassion. Therefore, we have more patience and ability, to invest the energy in trying to tell someone, you need to stop with this behavior. So it's extremely important. One of the things too is really important to note that, lateral violence, when we look at it, particularly to Indigenous people, it's, our collective experience is about, I think my slides are kind of messed up here. Anyway, so this is the counter. So lateral violence is when a group collectively has experienced a lot of oppression. That's a really important characteristic for Indigenous lateral violence, right? Because we're very, very specific about lateral violence and Indigenous, Indigenous people in our community. So the counter of lateral kindness is when we experience empowerment, love, and mutual support. The experiences make us feel worthy of love and belonging, and see other people as a source of goodness rather than a source of pain. They lead to feelings of deep sense of pride, generosity, and responsibility toward each other. So, and the feelings are directed at the people who are close to us, so we're like relearning about our behavior, and we're making a conscious decision not to engage, not to engage in lateral violence. So I'm just taking a look here. All right, lateral kindness, just checking the time because I know Ḳu.oo, we have till 6:30, right? Okay, so let's go back here. I think I'm going to skip this one, but I can always give you guys these slides. So,
take longer.
So take longer. Okay. So, all right. So lateral kindness, again, countering what lateral violence is there's a perpetrator. They cause the love and they're empowering themselves and the group. The target, the person that's getting the lateral kindness, and as a result, they feel connected and supported in the group. The bystanders, the rest of us, that are just innocently standing around and we see this happening, we learn that it's okay. It's okay to be kind and loving and supportive to each other. And I know that sounds kind of funny and basic, but when I worked at my own First Nation government, I felt attacked, belittled, demeaned, and afraid all the time. And I thought to myself, why the hell on God's green earth do we think our workplace needs to feel like Donald Trump's boardroom? You know, like the most furthest thing away from Indigenous, values and Indigenous methodologies of how we and our own protocols. It was just like the weirdest thing ever, is that people were just so brutal there and mean. And no one can thrive in an environment where you feel fear and you feel disempowered and you feel silenced. Because in all of our spaces, and our our workspaces and our family spaces and our community spaces, in the classroom space, the language learning space, people need to feel safe or they will not learn, period. They will not thrive, period. This is what absolutely we've come to learn, is that people need to feel emotional safety in any of our spaces. There's a lot of literature written about emotional safety in the workplace, and this is something I really love to share. So we have a position and role in Canada called the Governor General. And this is like the monarch's, voice in Canada, because we're part of the Commonwealth. Well, our last Governor General got fired because she was mean to her staff. So it's not just like the right thing to do. Well, it is the right thing to do, but it's also become law. And, at least in Canada, the Canada Labor Code lists all of this stuff as emotional violence, and it's not allowed. You're not allowed to do it. Right. So for us, what is the counter? And I know that, as you all learn language, you really unravel these things, these ideas and our protocols and our rules and our, the way that Tlingit people think and see things and understand things. You unravel that way beyond, the rest of us that don't understand the language, but absolutely how we're supposed to be, how human beings are supposed to be. But, to kind of encapsulate it here, to recognize we value and respect who you are, to appreciate, I see you and I appreciate your gifts, to listen, I want to hear what you have to say, to lift you up. How many of you have been heard, support and encouragement or compliments or acknowledgement of what you're doing in your own communities? To encourage, I love it. Don't give up. Don't stop learning language. Don't, because our people need you to do this. Regardless of what kind of hurdles and challenges, you got to keep going. To support, I'm here. I know you're going to make it, and to include, I'm so happy you're here. So our role is to lift each other up. We have a lot of ways that, we're able to really, shift that behavior patterns. Because I have to say that the lateral violence behavior patterns have been going on for decades. So one workshop is not going to change, lateral violence, but we just keep on it. We just keep on it, and we just keep ourselves focused on what our communities can look like and what life can, mean for ourselves. So this is just a really simple tool that Thomas and I developed. I know it sounds kind of simple too, ABC, but it helps us remember. So when you're in the moment, like I mentioned earlier, lateral violence is happening. Someone just came into your classroom and they threw a book down and said, you guys are all dumb and you're wasting your time, So like most of the time, like I said, everyone's like, like we react to that in one of our trauma responses, and if you get the chance, you should try to figure out, how do I respond when I'm scared? Because basically it comes down to fear or anger or whatever, however you respond. But a lot of people freeze, right? Like they just look like a deer in headlights and they don't know what to do, especially when we don't have tools, to do anything that will stop this. So the first thing we say is acknowledgement. It's like, hey, hello, I see you there. acknowledging the violence and that it's happening, acknowledge how you are contributing to the situations. These are things you're thinking of yourself, like, am I a part of this? Acknowledge the perpetrator and his or her right to be treated with dignity. So most of the time this looks like, hello, Ḳu.oo, I see you there, like, because remember, a lot of people are triggered to go towards lateral violence when they're feeling disrespected themselves, which is very weird, because you'd think that they wouldn't respond, but they do. And don't be patronizing, meek, or try to have a bonding session. It's not going to work in that moment, right? If you say, let's have a group hug, they're probably going to react negatively and be like, no, I want to, I just want to do what I'm doing here. So you acknowledge them. Hello, I see you there. And I'll try to act out a situation in a second here after I tell you the tools. We do a lot of role playing in the workshop. Everyone gets right in it. We deconstruct, everyone brings in some situations without naming names, and we just get in there and deconstruct them and try to understand all the dynamics of what's going on. And then, like a way to deal with it using this tool. So the boundary, and here's the hardest part ever. Everyone says like, oh my God, I hate putting boundaries. I don't know how to put a boundary down. I've never had a boundary, and I totally acknowledge Indigenous people don't have boundaries. It's like, yeah, just do whatever, say whatever, come over to my house whenever, kick down the door, phone me, whatever. There's like no boundaries. We were not taught that we're allowed to have boundaries, right? It's just like everyone has access to me and my life whenever they want. I know that sounds a little, dramatic, but I think that's true, right? Like we don't have boundaries. So boundary. 1, believe you're entitled to set and enforce personal boundaries. First of all, that's number 1. You are allowed to have boundaries. Based on your values and your needs, know your boundaries. Quickly and assertively draw a boundary around the lateral violence behavior. So this is where we make a huge distinction. It is not you, the person, that is bad and horrible and everything else. It's this thing here that you're doing. This thing you're doing here, that's what I'm calling out, and I'm going to ask you to stop. So don't try to get it perfect, because you won't. You absolutely won't. Worry about the boundary, or worry that it's received, or how the person is going to, receive it, because we can't change another person. We can't, change or, predict how they're going to react. But what we can do is that we can lay down a boundary, and we do have control over the way that we interact. Can't change another person, but we can change how we interact. You also don't need to explain or justify your boundary, right? You don't need to spend like 15 minutes trying to, validate yourself. Just boom, full stop. Here's my boundary. So, and then the last thing we have C. We call this connection, right? Because it's really important that, yourself and the person understands that, like, just because I laid a boundary on you doesn't mean this is the end of our relationship, right? That we can, there's still going to be connection. And connection to us is also about caring for yourself, taking time to release negative emotions, opening up that, time and availability to say, hey man, I need to like decompress here, and that's okay. Also showing care for the perpetrator, because after, all of that information we looked at, they're hurting. This is a person that is hurting, so it's like, hey, if you stop this behavior, like, let's go have coffee or whatever it is, and so once the boundary is defined and reciprocated and supported, we can, like, carry on this relationship we have here. So express caring without pity or feeling sorry for people. People don't like that, that kind of thing just kind of further, I think, perpetuates the, the angry feelings. So one of our scenarios that we lay out when we're, going through our ABC response tool is, so I pretend I'm like the finance person at Ḳu.oo First Nation, and Thomas is one of our citizens. He's coming in to get his what you call it, his check, right? It's not a paycheck. It's like a social assistance check. So he's humiliated right out of the gates coming in to get his check. And I'm the finance person. And we have a policy. The checks are not ready until 2 o'clock. And it's like 11 in the morning. So Thomas comes in and I'm sitting here and he's like, Marilyn, give me my check right now. I got to go to town. I know it's ready. I can see it right there. I just saw the chief come in and they blah. So I'm like, hi, Thomas. I'm doing the acknowledgement. Hi, Thomas. I know you need your check. I know money is important. However, if you're going to be disrespectful and aggressive, I can't help you right now. And then Thomas, just give me my damn check. I see it. Blah, blah, blah. So I'll repeat the boundary. Thomas, if you're going to be disrespectful and aggressive, I cannot help you. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. You know, so Thomas might stomp off and get mad and, you know, freak out or whatever. Or he might actually listen to me and say, okay, so what can you do then? How can you, you know, what can we do here? And then if I go into the connection, you know, space, I could say, well, if you just hold on, give me like 15 minutes, I will help you fill out a form where your check can be automatically deposited and you won't have to come in here, you know, to come get your check. So it's just a really simple, you know, kind of example, but it's, you know, there's all sorts of situations in our life where, you know, we can apply this. And it's easy to remember, you know, acknowledgement, boundary, connection. And the other thing we say is you have to practice, you know, like you're not going to just be like a lateral kindness Jedi, you know, like the first situation that comes up, it's probably going to, you know, stumble around a little bit and it's going to come out all weird and funny, you know, but that's why we really do practice in the workshops, you know, like the groups of people that are in there, we like, you know, come up with scenarios and we practice them because we kind of believe in this, you know, exposure therapy sounds really, you know, daunting and stuff, but like the more we kind of like put ourselves in a situation, the more and in a safe space, the more that you know, we become accustomed to it. And I'll give you guys a situation too, just for myself here. So I am definitely a fawner or a freezer, right? In the way that I respond to trauma. So you know all of those. So a person that freezes just like literally freezes, like, you know, your eyes are wide open and you're just like frozen. And then there's fighters, people who'll just get up and start fighting back. That would be my sister, right? That's her response to trauma. And then there's like a fleer, right? Someone who will just like get up, gone, right? Like they're out of there. And then the fawner, and this is one that's come on our radar recently. And this is the one I most relate to as well. So this is a fawner is someone that will completely concede all of their needs, all of their everything, just to please this other person, to appease this person that's doing the violence. It's like you're walking around on eggshells. You're just trying to like keep the waters, you know, like calm so they don't explode into their, you know, the lateral violence or emotional violence. And so I love that Lance is writing everything in Tlingit. That's so cool. So generally people respond in one of those ways, and it's really important that you understand yourself. Like, what do I do in the situation? You know, so then it helps you better, you know, get your boundary and be able to do this. So here's the situation. So one time we were, I'm sorry, I look a little dark with lights behind me right now. So one time we were facilitating this meeting in a community. It was literally a unity meeting. The community were just like, we're so sick of fighting each other. That's all we do. We just fight, like we fight, you know, and then one lady, an older lady, introduced herself as Gangster Grandma. That was any indication, you know, of like what she does. And her thing is, her pattern is that she will, in every single meeting, get up and holler at everybody, right? Like that's her jam. That's what she does. She gets the mic and she's just giving her. And so anyway, at this meeting, it was one of the other elders told, spoke to the journey of her nation, and it was beautiful. It was incredible. It was like a JFK speech. It was amazing. It was just so empowering and beautiful. And I was almost crying. It was just incredible. But immediately after she was done, that other woman just grabbed the mic and she stood up and she's like, it's not everybody's history. And Thomas said, he's like, oh my God, he was going into freeze mode. But then he goes, but then I saw a little 5'2" Marilyn jump up, hop up. And I just said, excuse me, at the beginning of our meeting, we decided that we would be respectful to each other. So I would like to ask you to please be respectful. And she just sat right back down. And that was that. And inside myself in that moment, I was like, oh my God, what are you doing? But it just happened. I was up, I stood up and I said that. And I didn't say anything wrong. I didn't say anything disrespectful. All I said was, we agreed at the beginning of this meeting to have some rules and guidelines. And one of them was respect. So I'm going to ask you to be respectful, please. Yeah. So, we start to change behavior. We start to, make new norms for our community and in our spaces, the spaces that are important to us. And that includes the classroom as well. And it includes language, learning as well. Everywhere we are, we need to do these things. And I feel very, very strongly, and this is why I spent so much time in my life, that this is a major part of our healing, right? Because we need to feel safe. We have to be safe to do the important things that we need to do, to keep walking forward. And we all deserve it. We all deserve beautiful, supportive, encouraging communities, right? We can do it too. So that's the huge, huge message of lateral kindness. And that's all I have for you tonight. There's me and some of our little DACA juniors. And thank you again so much, for letting me share a little time with you. And it's really important. I just want you all to know how much you are valued. And I think you're literally doing the hardest work in our communities right now. Seriously, hard work. So thank you again. Gonshish. Any questions?
Well, let's do a structured response first, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So, language learners, I would invite you to give a response however you want. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Whatever you want to do is wonderful. Hachiqa kwati awa e yukhatangi. Wash iteich tu dach aya yukhakitan. Qaqa kwati yuhan. Ya hatuwasagu. Ya kayet aya hakuyeti aya ya yidat yeka kwati. Shukwaya. Du yade yukhagaki saat. Keshatua oshkut kawayik de yawas ahiwe du yukhatangi. Achkawe aya yukhagaki saat. Shukwa singit kailach aka awe gleit kakinach. ഖു.oo Yagyeeyí keshta katatoe hasakawaach. Achawe yeka kwati gunchish. So I'd like to invite folks to just say something. We have a phrase. I'll put it in the chat. Keshatua ushku kawayik de yawas ahi iyuchatangi. We don't want your words to just echo off into space. So that's why we have responses. This is a cultural component of Lingít. When somebody says something or does something important, the group shouldn't just be like, huh, and then just sort of move along. Like, there needs to be a response. And so this is the response. So say something in Lingít and then go ahead and translate it into English, because not all of us understand everything. And then I will give a response as well, including sharing some words of One of my personal favorites. There's a favorite. Jeez. And then
he came up and said too.
someone's just okay. Yeah, okay. And then we'll open it up for just a dialogue after that. So responses.
It looks like Kasank is speaking, but with your mic is off.
Oh.
Chakwati achlisk. Ha. Haslisku kas utk. Sheetka 1980. Ach tuwasagu hatsu. Ach tachkana ya yited yetiyin. Dimitri yudu sagun. Ho'owe yakayin. You yis kach hatsatich. I used to listen to him, and he used to say that one-way love. Tleyi ka de kosahan gugana. Wushke de kosahan ko always for long living ye kokwasti. Ye aweach to wuyati. Yahaji de yat ye yati ye kosahani. A ye dak kashi. Chuch tu nicht ka dati kach. Ganesha gonna chishawe. Gonna chishawe. How? Tle yi ka de kosahan. Ḳu.oo. Chayeka yeguwat. Ushke de kosahan ku'a. Ye kokwasti. Tlein talk. Ach stundanugu. Iyuchatangi adat. Ushke de kosahan ku'a yeyati. Ye kokwasti Tlein talk. Iyuchatangi ye kokwasti. Ach Yagyeeyí ka ach teik yik ka ach yak kwaheya yago yik Tlein talk. Gonna cheese
Kachawek and cheese.
Sheesh.
So I wanted to imitate my grandfather, well, more our grandfather, Charlie Joseph, in this book, Ḥu.oo. He said, I also want to speak again. Yes, my grandchild used to live here. He was called Dimitri. It was he who used to say this when I was a young man. I used to listen to him, and he used to say that one-way love will die, but love for each other will live for a long time. That's how my feelings are. These things you handed up to us, your love, let me put out my hand that I too may receive them into my soul. Thank you. Thank you. And then I just repeated in kind of my own words that one-way love will live for just a short while, but love of each other will live for many years. And the way my inner feelings feel is your words are about this one-way love. It's just like it, and it will live for many years. Your words will live inside of my mind, inside of my heart, inside of my inner spirit for many years. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sheesh. Beautiful.
Kusachan dach ju lachsak. At Ḥu.oo dach yach au shakan. Adeka tu yak gonna chi chut Yagyeeyí. Tlein gonna chi. So the love of people, we reach for it, we keep stretching till we accomplish it. You know, we reach our hands and we don't quit. I'm grateful for what you taught me tonight. thank you very much for guiding me. Yagyeeyí.
Oh, Gulchish.
Tish.
Adisatze.
Gnilchish gach ansan Ḳu.oo. Ada Wande gach tunak. You can count on us to stand up for it. We're singing that today in class, and I just want to say Gnilchish for your words.
Tish.
Aha. Gulchish.
Yatlek, Batya, Yanak Sakwain, Iak, Aya Yak, Gunaschish, Yadultín, Kadukik, Ayawaka, Yatlinket Ani, Gekwushjin Tushat Yesu. I feel like I can ponder for many more months. Yaak, Aya Yak. There will be enough for you. There is a space reserved for you. I thank you for coming and speaking to us tonight. And then I repeated the inspirational line, Yatlinket Ani Kekwushjin Tushat Yesu. In all this troubled world, we are holding each other's hands. Gunaschish.
Tish.
Sukaka.
That's a Ḳu.oo.
Ah.
Yadultín away. Yukatunk. Ḳu.oo. Ha unique. Colonialism dach. Qua. We ka, we sha. Yagyeeyí. Chega. Ḳu.oo. Gunaschish.
Kacha. Gulchish.
Tish.
Kacha. Achitke Ḳu.oo. Kacha.
Yadultín. Chadaya Juan Tlein Ḳu.oo. Gunalchish Iyuchatunk. Ya atwuna we wuchin. Gunalchish. With hati. Yigudi. Yechana. Gunalchish. Uj.
Gulchish.
ख़तया Gnilchish Yadultín ख़atangi Yagyeeyí dat Adadi Ide Ḳakwatan Wulitsin ख़atangi Tlachega Achstuga ख़atati Atuadach Kua Hatu Litsin Chas Lakat at Yakwahegu Kuziti Achwe wuj is khan atlech teach as giwe wuj Ḳu.oo. Aguch dada hakusti yeyawaka wuj kaduha. Thank you for your words, Yadultín Marilyn. Now at this time, I'd like to speak to you about it. Your words were powerful. I'm truly grateful to you. Because of this, we gain strength and bind, and everything in spirit exists. Because of this, love for each other, being one, perhaps that is what will blend our lives together, said Jimmy George. Thank you for listening.
Jeez.
Agnes, Junior can I hate you huck do a sock. Yagyeeyí Yagyeeyí Yadultín Ḳu.oo car cross Shukát Ḳu.oo Ḳu.oo Saya yaha Ḥuk.iti how now Yagyeeyí in han kinde wushye guktuth shot. I said I know I definitely didn't conjugate it right, but a few weeks ago I saw the sun rise outside of car cross, and it was a really, really special morning, and I think about it a lot. So Ģenestíš for sharing your words from that special place and for sharing the name of that place in Lingít. I also said that we are fortunate that you are here among us, and that your presence is like medicine. And I wanted to, I didn't know how to say we stand by you because I wasn't sure how to conjugate it, but I said I stand with you, and I'm sure we all do. And then I said one of the phrases that Ḥune shared with us, which is that I think together we will lift each other up high. Ģenestíš.
Jeez.
Yeah. Monsieur Shukát Yahan Ḥuk.oo to Tlein Kagach to Ak Yuchyan Yatu Dashaki Anach Nach to Tlein. Thank you, everyone. Everyone Lingíts, we are kind. We're going to try and make it to shore and do it with kindness. You are kind people.
Ģenestíš. It's okay.
Ya ach ink sati Ḳu.oo has dukach yande akwadesh. I will protect the people I am with. Tlein Ģenestíš for your words.
Ģenestíš.
Jeez.
Kataya. Okay. Tlein Ģenestíš Yukatangi Itutli Kunach Itutli good words for us to live by. Ģenestíš.
Jeez.
Yagyeeyí Johan. Ģenestíš. Wasach. Oh. Yitgeqoha. Yagyeeyí.
De Yadultín
Juan.
Bye, Juan.
Ach tu asagu.
Algan.
Gunachis well, Gunachis. Kusahan katula antin yagach tudla. Kusahan katula antin yagach tudla. Oh, hey, ha, hey, ya, hey, hey, ya. Kusahan katula anten yagach tudlak. Gunchij yuchatank. Thank you so much for your words. We're going to get there, and we will succeed by way of our loving kindness. And thank you for your example.
Han George.
Ja, Ḳu.oo tu asagu yaqaqtatani ltakat yuhan. Ťuya kit gush seyi aya kekhadua wat ya akhlilk gush tehin. Ade aya khat sakhaniya. Chitsina wa akhtuda awati. Ya wa adati takhwatan kya yidat. Ade aya kutuzatiya. Shukát chuchts aya yudu asago at Shukát chuchts. Ya hat ago kago has de tuaw sa goon. Dakte haswo ati ka ekte. Dakte ekte. Yewe hakusi. Chuoya ya etlhini. Wetatsu. Dak ya na deen. Kayan ya na Tlein ya. Wan qanin sa dati takhwatank ade aya tunig nak aya wugud. Tlektihin aya ya ach kani ayuk aya hanak wugud. Ach tuo akawa watladat. Ya ach ish has kagwantan. Kusatan aya yudusagan. Duku ya ya nakik. Qanaya nakhiya ya wutusaku qakh da shi awa wutua akh Shukát ish has klipnach adi qakh da shi awa hasawa shi wutusaku wan qanin qnakhawe wuqakh hausakhani hastudat khatsa qnakhawe khwaqakh aqawe khwakh ya hashilk kewek yande ya naitlaq yande ya naitlaq shtucht nuk eqa atoy itxawe yuqakhwatan duin wasakei ik khanakawanik choyat sayagu yana shit aqaq ilcha hakatugut shidzi tlaqunakh kunakhawe ya kakanal hitawe hayagu Kun ka sakshwe aya wuchin mutu kha. Wasa hasewo at wasa hautletish. Ayukutusatin, yan mutusatin. Aka away, we yakut atikoneke we tikatin. Yende ya yanay tlak. Yewa adat yutukhutankya yagi. Data tinach sahayati. Ya yan tutlakit. Ya hayukatangi hahakosi. Wuchin. Gwashlasaya kudzatiya yidat shingit anika. Shingit anikach. Shingit ahuhai. Kashika kwatikoa. Yahashik kashkawu. Kaithawe utuach. Chakeich. Kukakas ti shingit. Yekwatiyoha. Ganashish Yadultín. I feel like sometimes I was raised in the shadows of the dorsal fin of the killer whale. My grandfather's name was Ḳu.oo. He was the one who, the way he loved me when I was a child, really gave me a lot of strength. Because we face a lot of stuff doing this work. There's a lot of negativity sometimes. But what we see here, I feel strength and joy. I'm so thankful that we're here doing this type of work. I was thinking about it, the ways that we work together, the ways that we are being together, learning together, creating speakers, turning things around. I was trying to think of what could we call colonialism. And I thought, Shingit just erasing humans from the world. Can't think of another way to say that kind of thing. So decolonization, I guess, would be let Lingít exist forever. And that's what it's going to do. That's just what's going to happen. And so when we do work like this, which I think we've got to do more of in the language community, I think a lot about the ways the phrase I would say is tunik nak gat. So tunik is sorrow, pain. Nak is to leave something behind. And then gat, we're going to do that. And so I would think of those things because we have processes for doing this. But our whole world's been it's been blown up and turned upside down. But I was at a Ḳu.oo, a friend of mine, he died pretty suddenly. He was called Guantan. And I was devastated. It was unexpected. It was just out of nowhere. I remember at his funeral watching Qastin, Clarence Jackson, tell an incredible story in Lingít. And at his Ḳu.oo, which is, we know the cry songs come towards the beginning. Sometimes we're kind of programmed, like this is your chance to really let go of a lot of grief because we're going to release it together. But that nak is important. That part is important because I think doing this work, sometimes you put all these traumas and these pains on the table and you're like, okay, there it is. And then you put it back in your pocket and you walk around with it, right? So like the separating yourself from the trauma is sort of the hard part because it becomes like a family member because the world just takes so much from our people. So I was watching them with their cry song and I was crying for my friends, And then I heard our grandpa, his name is Yadultín Herman Davis, just start to yell, Yande ya yanaitlak, Yande ya yanaitlak, which is, you're on the verge of succeeding. You're on the verge. You're going to make it. And so I remember, like, I just really felt that, what he was saying, the way he was saying it. So I came up to him afterwards. I said, God, tell me about what you were saying. And he said, well, it's like we're out there and our canoe is just really cruising along. Yanashit is a really cool verb. It means like that canoe is just gliding through the water. And we hit this big storm. Big canoe's really rocking in the waves. And we've been at it a long time paddling. We're getting cold. We're getting scared. We're getting lonely. And we finally see the shore. And that the person at the rudder is going to start yelling, Yande ya yane tlak. Because it could also be interpreted as, you're right there, making it to the shore. So we do this work together. I think about this stuff because it's like the ways our people have always, we go inland to the coast and inland to the coast, and the ocean, the tide comes up and comes down. And so goes our battles with grief and sadness. But like when we do this work together and commit to just being kind and being loving, and just saying like respect is not just something I put on the refrigerator for a magnet, but it's atyawudni, atchagud. I just walk around with respect. And it's a hard thing to do because people are going to be, I had a fight with a racist robot today on Twitter. I think I won. I'm pretty sure I won. But to not sort of get pulled into this stuff, if you're speaking Tlingit and somebody's just glaring at you, and you know, I've been there, and just to sort of move beyond that kind of realm and into something where we're not fighting for the scraps, we're sharing the meals of our ancestors. So, bilchish, yeah, well,
Sheesh.
Any other things? Go about half an hour. We could do question and answer. I know. We gotta do one more thing. Hold on. We gotta look at the words of Ḳu.oo George Davis, just so that we can hear them, because he's so good. So let me find that, and then we will do. Wait, let me make sure I shared this down. Okay.
Hell Lingít ani Ḳu, Nikten da yi Ḳu, Nikten Kda inek, just Tullaan, Kakosachan, Ḳu.oo Ḳu.oo. Yana Skotja Lingít ani. Akagede Guxlaquat, Akuk Quati, Kusti. Kwasnik Trikadek Wagut. Adjawaj as Kusachan, Katusan itek Ḳu.oo. Jawase Uke Ikatini. Yaan Itusiani Ḳu.oo. Kwas Ida has Kuchtashi.
Okay. Sheesh. I gotta update those subtitles. A couple errors in there. So. Thoughts, questions?
I appreciate.
Oh,
what-
sorry.
No, I was just going to say thank you to you for bringing that and looking at it too, because I recently taken a position in behavioral health with our people, and that type of thing is kind of what I just wrote papers on, feeling included in your culture to succeed. So gonna cheese out playing gonna cheese. So I'd like to see more. I'd like to read some slides like that and learn more. Gonna cheese.
Yeah, and thanks for cooking it down to like a solid hour. I know this is probably usually an all-day workshop, and we had you just cook it down to just the grease.
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to say, hearing your words in Lingít and what they mean, you know, your best efforts in translating, it just proves that this is already in us. We already know this. It's a part of our ancestral DNA, you know, and I think most people carry this, and it's in their hearts, and it's you know, how people want to be. And when we act outside of, you know, our own you know, teachings, we don't feel good. People don't feel happy when they do these things, you know. So it's just such a loving act, you know, to just give somebody the opportunity to have a better relationship with you. You know, if we can not do this, we can have such a good and deep and meaningful relationship. So it's probably one of the most respectful things you could do, you know, is because a lot of people's natural inclination is like, I'm out, man, I'm out of here. You know, I'm not engaging with you. But if you can, you know, if you can like get past that, feel compassion, and, you know, and just in a, you know, in a way that we, if you can figure out how to say this in Lingít, loving strength.
Ooh.
Loving strength is what we need to lay down a boundary when we're telling someone to, you know, not do lateral violence. One lady told us, and she was a residential school survivor. She said, I have to find my brave words. And that's what she meant, was simply a boundary. My brave words. So your words that you shared in Lingít were so powerful and amazing, really, really uplifting. And like, I feel like I'm just going to be riding high for a long time. And I downloaded your phrases of encouragement because I want, yeah, all of the, does the chat save too? Or do I just need to like?
So usually, so all our classes are all the classes I teach are, we put them on YouTube, and then
Right.
there's a blog, clinkitlanguage.com, and then all the slideshow, like if you want to share your slideshow, I'll put it up there. And the chat goes up there, and usually if we do notes and stuff, that all goes up there, so that people
Okay.
can follow along anywhere, anytime with us. And then this encouragement phrases, I want to give a lot of credit to Ḳu.oo, Ishmael Hope, for doing the work on this, and Ḳu.oo, Victoria Johnson, and then Gold Belt Heritage Foundation for funding it. And so we really try to share a lot of encouraging phrases that we've heard. And then there's a lot of elders who would just say them to us. Like there's a story that we're going to look at in Advanced Tlingit on Wednesday by Ḳu.oo, Cyril George, and he'd say something like, Ach tu Yagyeeyí, or no, he'd say, Gunnel chi Yagyeeyí, ach de chunki yen, ach chint has uwashi yag, ach tu litzini hasati. So it was something, I'm probably paraphrasing, but he'd say, I'm so thankful today. My grandchildren touched my hand and led me and brought me here. They are my courage. Like, ach tu litzini hasati. And like to be in the room when someone like Cyril would say that, and to understand what he was saying was really just amazing. And so my goal is to get everyone up to that level, to say, if you're in the room and that stuff happens, I want you to know. I want, boom, to have that firecracker go off in your brain about like what they just said and did.
Amazing.
How? For me, sometimes it's easy to my words to get biting. It's easy. It comes easy to me. In many places, I'm put in front of people that need it, and the people are behind me and they listen, you know, and they're all aboard. You know, I know that that's very seldom that you're in that position. where it's needed, you know. But it's just really easy to get into that space of biting. What I find though, you know, you can do the same thing with love and kindness, but it usually takes 10 times the effort to get there, because while you're in that space, you're often getting stuff thrown at you at the same time that you're going forward. As you're saying stuff in love and kindness, you have people like Yadultín was saying, they're glaring at you, they're giving you all this negativity, and you know, you have to kind of fight through that. So it's really good to hear different ideas about how to deal with and approach that. And you know, there's still a part of me that's inside that's like, what about that passive aggressive person? There's passive aggressive lateral violence. It usually happens at the very top, the political spaces where all the kasha dahani are at. They speak nice to you, but when you're not looking, you know, they're doing very violent things to you to try to push you down. And it's really hard to stay loving and kind in that space. But like everything you said, it transforms the people if you can do it. I mean, everybody accepts the fight as something that happens, but if you're capable of taking the time to make it happen in that loving space, you transform the people, including the people you're fighting against often. So gonna cheese for your words. I really appreciate that. Cheese.
Yes. And you reminded me of a really important factor in, you know, the words that you just said. Every single workshop, someone will say, what about elders? What about when elders are doing lateral violence to us? And basically what we have come to is that the rules apply to everybody. And that would be the same as the leaders, you know, especially the leaders should be doing demonstrating lateral kindness, because that's, you know, lateral kindness to me is Ḥku.oo. It's how we're supposed to be, you know, it's how our own teachings, our own rules and guidelines on behavior. So we've just come to the place where, you know, we've realized it doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, the same rules apply. And that's so hard for us. You know, it's so hard for us as Indigenous people, because we've always been taught respect elders, you know, and sometimes we feel like when we, you know, lay down a boundary on an elder, it's not respectful, but it is respectful, because again, we're going to that place of we will have a better relationship, you know, if we can fix this thing here, this thing that you're doing. If we can fix this, we're going to have a more meaningful relationship. So thank you for bringing that up, because that is really important.
Sheesh.
Sheesh.
Anyone else?
I just want to say that I've heard of lateral violence before, but it wasn't explained as well as you've been able to today. And I really learned so much. And I feel like I actually have a full understanding of it now and can actually move forward with a lot of the things that I'm learning and doing, because I mean, we're here to do the same thing. We're all trying to achieve the same goal, and it's sorry, I try not to get emotional because the timing is just so funny. But Tlein this is something that I feel like a lot of us needed to hear today, and I think it will really help us.
Awesome. That makes me so happy. And you know what? If you need to cry, cry. You know, there's a lot of emotions when we do this work, because we've all felt it so greatly. And, you know, as language learners or anyone doing anything important, you're truly living your life in the arena, right? Which is a metaphor for being out there and right in the middle of everyone, just vulnerable, and especially in language learning. So you do become a target, and you have to realize that it's not you, it's somebody else's stuff. Again, that teaching of, if you can learn how to do just that one thing now, you will save yourself so much grief in life. It's not about me. It's whatever's going on right now with that person in this moment, that's theirs. And I'm not going to take it on. I'm not going to own it. I'm too busy. I'm learning the Tlingit language. I don't got time, to be absorbed and distracted with that kind of stuff, right? So you just keep doing what you're doing because it's important, and again, when you're out there in the middle of everything, people see you, and then that's when they'll target you. So just put on your Jedi armor, just let it bounce off and keep doing your thing.
Guna.
On Tlein Gunas Tish, Johan ka Asha Guna Yuchadosauk, ka Ḳu.oo Yadultín Marilyn Kat am sitin Ḳu.oo Chukler Technach Yagyeeyí Ḳu.oo Chega Litzin Achaya Chat Litzin. Hello everybody, my name is Guna. I haven't met you yet. I'm a baby learner of Lingít, but I really wanted to join in tonight in this class because this is my mother that just provided this, as always, amazing mini lecture of something that is very expansive that she does in her workshops. I've done her workshops a few times, but also I've just been able to hear her and Thomas talk about different themes and concepts in their work. And if it feels like there was a lot, it's because it is a lot. And I'm just saying that because I deepen on different themes and concepts every single time that I take their workshops. And for example, hearing identifying lateral violence as it is really difficult in the moment when you're being attacked. So it's something that it just takes time and it takes a lot of courage. There's a lot of moments after I experience something super laterally violent and I'm like, oh my God, well, that's totally what it was. But in the moment, I do my thing, I freeze, or I'm like in shock that someone would actually say that to me. So just reiterating that it's like, it takes time and it does take a lot of work. I wrote down that there's so much wisdom in seeing someone's pain when they try to inflict pain onto you. I think there's a lot of wisdom there, and takes a lot of hard work, and it takes a lot out of us to be able to see that and to eventually have a wisdom to hold compassion for people that are trying to hurt us. I said and think it that I am strong because my mom is truly strong. I also said that I watch her work hard, tirelessly, like forever working hard, because she is. So she's visiting me right now here in Juneau, and she's very generously offered her time to be able to share this very valuable knowledge. So I just want to say to my one and only mother for her brilliance.
Oh, Guna. And I don't want to come across as like I'm being laterally violent right now, but as we speak, Auntie is here making stew and bannock for you and Ḳu.oo.
Oh yeah, you can come do Ḳu.oo.
Yeah, and Kaylin. she's making bannock. So sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Guna. That's really precious, and I'm really proud of you. I'm glad you're here with such amazing people.
I carry a lot of this wisdom with me too as I venture into a new chapter as a teacher. So I'm infinitely grateful to be able to have that with me going forward in my work. Yeah.
Takat Johan Yisikuke Adusoe Kashkawu. Wasatu Saklet Kakinach. Cyril George, Kakwede Husatian. Skundi Koa, Skundi, Yisikuke Skundi, Tihitan. Skundi, Wasatu Sag, Kakinach, Wasatu Sagan.
William Paul.
William Paul.
William Paul. So one time, Cyril George came to visit our classes one time, and he started talking about lateral violence. It was really interesting. He said when he was a young boy going to Sheldon Jackson, whatever it was called at the time, which was very restrictive school for the Tlingit language, as a boarding school, at a place called Ḳu.oo, which is what they should call that place and not call it whatever else. Its name is Ḳu.oo, the village at the head of the bay. Ḳu.ta is also, there's a place called Qa.nach, and then there's a place called Qa.nakhta, and there's a people called Qa.nakhti. So they're the people from the head of Qa.nach, Sheltered Bay. But he says when he was a boy at Sheldon Jackson, a man named William Paul came to visit their classroom. And he stood up and he said, long time ago, it's the Tlingit way. Yeah, 1 for 1. So if you had a big fight and 3 people got killed over here and 2 people got killed over here, when they'd make peace, they'd say, send one over. So it's 3 to 3. And then we all feel okay about it, right? So sometimes you got picked, he said. Sometimes, and you're like, uh-oh, gotta go over there and keep the culture going. And then he said, and this one young man got sent over, and there are these houses back there, and they lined up 3 of their sharpshooters with their chunit, sakska chunit. They said, okay, when we say go, you run between those houses, and our sharpshooters will get a shot, and if they don't get you, then you can go home. So we'll just leave it up to chance. I didn't quite understand the transition, and he says, and the point of it is, if they're not shooting arrows at you, you're not doing a damn thing. And I laughed. I said, well, I don't think I understand that transition, but I'm down. I'm down for the whole thing. So this has been going on a long time, and this is something we battle with. These other sort of things that we hear about, the nail that sticks up gets hammered down and stuff. But I think also, like, if we can just take that instinct that we might have to say something bad about someone or to be upset about something when they're actually doing something really good, if we could just transform that into a compliment and into a sort of like, well, how can I do something good? So we don't have to shoot arrows at each other. We shoot arrows at like the things we're gonna eat, and then we can feed each other. We could feed each other soup and bannock for everybody. I'm just kidding. But, a culture of giving, and we are not stingy people. Shaqaiq is stingy. I asked Nora Dowenhauer, how do you say generous? She said which means not stingy. So 4 minutes left. Any other thoughts, questions you want to share?
Oh, I wanted to tell you guys too that tomorrow I'm meeting with Sea Alaska, and we've been having talks with Sea Alaska for a few months, and they do want to bring the full workshop to language learners in Southeast Alaska. So we'll see what's going to happen. I think that the time frame is kind of looking like to be the new year. So anyway, I hope that, comes available to everybody, because, the more the tools, we gain, and the more understanding, I think we're more equipped to put on that baby Yoda armor, and just keep doing what you're doing. I love that you wrote that down.
Put your email in the chat so that if other folks might want to connect with you and bring you to
Sure.
Kensington or Sitka
Yeah.
or
Yeah, absolutely.
Lateral Kindness World Tour going.
Yeah.
I would like to say goodness Chase for actually having a tool, the ABC at the end. I have heard about lateral violence. I have learned about lateral kindness. And often, I just want to fight people when they come for when they come for, especially my little sister. It happens a lot when they want to come for my little clan sister, and I just want to fight them. That's not the right response. I know it's not. So having this tool, especially when I'm in, often I have to have my professional hat on, and to be able to do this and not just resort to fighting with them, whether it's with my hands or my words, is very useful. It's incredibly timely because we've been talking about it for a couple of weeks now, because it's come up a lot recently, given some events that have come up. And so I just want to thank you for giving us something practical, because often these workshops are inspirational but not always practical. So Ganeshish.
Okay.
Thank you, Ganeshish. Thomas will be very happy to hear that feedback, especially about the tool, because we realize, yeah, we can learn about it and bring awareness and stuff, but we also need to take action, right? So yeah, it's just one little part of it for sure.
Okay. Ganeshish, Chancellor Karen Carey, for encouraging us to continue to do Indigenous Peoples Day events. Ganeshish to everyone who's doing all kinds of rad stuff for Indigenous peoples everywhere. And Ganeshish to our Provost, Warren Havig, our Dean, Karen Slakaitis. Ganeshish to our Indigenous Studies staff and faculty at UAS, and above all, for our students, because like we just wanted to get like 100 people in the door and see what would happen. And so we might go Shukát on the way there, but we're all getting in these canoes and going. So it's exciting times. I think the future is brighter and brighter. So Ganeshish to cut on Tuyak e ha in chisati yachana Wujin chsati Kashtasa ayanach yake Testla an kakasachantin Yakakach tusti Wujin Yakahawe. I think that's it, folks. Ganeshish.
Come over for Bannock and stew.
Was that to the whole Zoom?
Yeah. And your t-shirt. Yeah, your t-shirt too, Kune, so you can rock it proudly. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Ganeshish.
Yeah.
Mababware.
Aw.
Tlein Ḳwāt
Okay.
Ganeshish. Ooh. You